All right, this is my presentation on exploring surveillance systems. I started with the research question, just how effective are surveillance systems in this day and age? And what I found out was that they're reasonably effective, but mostly they're just not being used to their full potential. And, well, what do I mean by this? Well, we're not fully taking advantage of this technology that we have figured out, right? First of all, there's the basic issue of strength of the cameras that we generally use in our security cameras. We've all seen the footage of the corner store security camera above the counter. It's usually like black and white, it's grainy, it's almost impossible to tell who's who in those situations, which is just unacceptable in a situation in which we need to figure out who is the perpetrator of a crime. Second of all, there's quantity. I think the statistic almost speaks for itself in this case. In about 2.5 million burglaries in a year, only 13% are actually solved, and 87% are left unsolved because of lack of substantial evidence. And that number would just significantly decrease if we had more substantial evidence in this form of like videotapes of the situation. Lastly, there are just so many more potential applications of the technology outside of law enforcement, not the least of which is environment monitoring. In the article Extrasensory Perception by Gershon Dublon and Joseph A. Paradiso, they detail how by adding several surveillance systems into an ecosystem, they were able to figure out damaging factors that were actually influencing life in that ecosystem. And not just that, they predicted that with even more advanced sensor systems, they would be able to actually create a situation in which someone with a virtual reality headset and that gear could actually go into that place in real time and experience that world. In addition to that, there's recording history. In the article History as a Participant by Arthur Schlesinger Jr., he discusses whether or not a first-hand witness is a more effective source than a second-hand account of an event. But I would argue that a straight video recording of the event serves far better concrete evidence because we already know exactly what happens that way. We've seen it as it happens. In addition to that, we would be able to figure out this situation, for example, in which a former Russian spy and his daughter were almost poisoned to death in London. If we had security cameras, we would have been able to know exactly who did this, for example. Lastly, there are police body cameras. In these situations, many people have been talking about these. It's like, people feel safer around them because the police are held accountable for what they do. But what these body cameras are able to accomplish in making people feel safer and having a better accountability of things is severely neutered by the fact that there are issues with depth perception and shaky footage. For example, in this image here, we can barely figure out what's going on due to the shaky hand, the fisheye lens that's neutering what we're able to see in the background, and what's this person in the corner? We don't know. An argument that someone who is against adding more and increasing the number of surveillance systems in our world would be potentially, hey, it's infringing on our rights. We don't want to be constantly monitored at every time of day because that way we're going to be unable to live in our regular private lives. Now, this is a valid concern here. Having governments monitor our every activity and using that ability to monitor people to shut other people's voices down is a dangerous thing. And one of those dangerous things about that is that we need people to have a free voice in their time, right? And so I actually have a proposed solution to this, in which we can create a solution in which we create an international nonpartisan group of experts in the world of surveillance that would come together to regulate the use of these systems, prevent governments from just using them for their own purposes, and in addition to that, they would be able to make sure what information actually gets out, because we don't want every single thing that we monitor to get out, because then we'll just flood the market with information. Nothing will be individually useful because there's so much filler that we don't really need. And we don't really want people to be recording us our bathrooms, of course. And that concludes my presentation.
Okay. Cool. All right. So I have a couple of questions for you, sir.
Absolutely.
All right. So How valuable were your sources you used, and how do you know, and which sources didn't work?
How valuable? Can you explain the question? Like how valuable as in like how much did I rely on them or?
Yeah.
A really useful source for me, like should I give you an example of one really useful?
Sure.
All right. A really useful source for me was an article from the New York Times. I actually used a picture from it here. It was the police body cameras one, in which it was actually kind of an interactive article. I think you saw me while I was researching in class. What it would happen, what we would do, it would be, first it would give you a little survey, and it would like then show you short videos of people actually using police body cameras and then what the actual event was outside of that. And it gave me a really interesting perspective on just how effective that they are, because this would be the first person event, right? And it's like you can't tell what's happening. Maybe he's trying to be in a defensive position with the hand motion, or maybe he's being aggressive. But in reality, when it showed you like the outside perspective, these people were just like jumping up and down, like bumping their chests together. It was just like supposed to be ridiculous, but you can't tell what's happening there. And so that was a pretty big and interesting, eye-opening article for me, right? I could now figure out, oh hey, these things are not nearly as effective as they could be if we put more emphasis on these surveillance systems.
So what might be some real world implications of your findings?
Of my findings is in like what I propose as a solution. Pretty big one is that governments would actually find a loophole, and my solution would be like, hey, we'll bribe you to give us this information, and that's a pretty dangerous thing. But I think that it could be overcome with impartial people who are dedicated to doing the right thing.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Julian.
Thank you. Should I?